Hello, friends, and welcome to the pre-concert lecture for Rameau and the Art of Dance. I'm Robert Mealy. I'll be leading this program with my students from Juilliard alongside my colleagues from Tafelmusik, and I'm very delighted to be collaborating with my dear friend and colleague Caroline Copeland.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Caroline Copeland. I'm a New York-based educator and teacher, a professional dancer, and Robert and I have worked for a long time with each other with the Boston Early Music Festival, Juilliard415. I've also worked a lot with the New York Baroque Dance Company, and I specialize in 17th and 18th century dance and opera.
So I wanted to say a little bit about how special this program is to me in particular, because I actually started my professional career with Tafelmusik when I was still an undergraduate at college. I dropped out and I ran away to join the circus, and I came to Tafelmusik and lived in Toronto for a year and a half before going back to finish my degree because my parents were concerned that I should really get a college education. But by then it was clear that I was already doing this, and I continued to work with Tafelmusik, flying back and forth for projects for about 8 years after that. But my first project when I came to Toronto was with a very inspiring pioneer of the Baroque violin named Sigiswald Kauken, and part of his program was a suite from Dardanus of Rameau, and it blew my mind. I was so thrilled to discover this repertoire that we don't really do that often.
Mm.
It's become something that's really, I think, close to both of us in music and in dance. But I thought this would be a fantastic occasion to celebrate Rameau's brilliance, not only as a musician and a composer, but also as someone who inspires choreography.
Yeah.
So what we've done with this program is there are four suites from different operas, a suite from his first big opera ballet called Les Indes Galantes, and a suite from his second big tragédie lyrique, which was called Castor et Pollux, a suite from Dardanus, and then a really interesting suite from his 1749. It was called the Opéra pour la Paix because it was a celebration of the end of one of the big European wars, and it's called Naïs. So both Dardanus and Naïs will be danced. And
Yes.
Caroline, do you want to talk a little bit about how you've approached these pieces?
Yes. So it's not just going to be me on the program. Joining me will be a fabulous dancer, Julian Donahue. He's also New York based. I think I actually may have introduced Julian Donahue to Baroque dance, and we did a production at the Boston Early Music Festival called Carnaval de Venise. I was choreographing it, I was performing in it, and Julian was a young artist at the time, and I lured him in. I'm always looking for young. There's no shortage of beautiful, young, talented dancers, but not everybody has the intellectual curiosity to go back in time. And Julian is very special this way. So he's not only a fabulous performer and technician, but he has a curious mind. And so I was so excited to invite him as my co-conspirator in this project. And we decided to tackle two of the suites, which is a fair amount of dancing, actually. And I decided because we are extracting the suites from operas, we're dealing in a non-abstract time period, as you know. So everything is representational and character-based in Rameau's operas, but there's only two of us. And so we decided to be in basically one character for each suite, as opposed to constantly changing modes. And I decided to choreograph the Dardanus suite in the style of mid-century, mid-18th century ballet, which is a little bit of a blind spot for early ballet practitioners. And I can explain a little bit about that later. And then Julian decided to choreograph the Nais suite in a contemporary dance vernacular, but because he's already steeped in 18th century dance forms and because he reads music, he's attuned to all the rhythmic play and the character shifts that I think some choreographers, when they tackle Baroque music, they don't exactly know what to do with it. Baroque music makes everybody want to dance, right? It's based in dance form, so there's a lot of movement and a lot of character shifts. And although we feel it, how dancers feel music is a little different in the Baroque period than how we feel it in contemporary or even in contemporary ballet mode. So in Baroque dance, we're much more attuned to all the beats of a measure. Whereas dancers in ballet class today or contemporary class, they're thinking in one, two. These are dancer counts. One, two, three, four. But Baroque dancers are like one, a two, a three, a one, a two, a three, a one, e, and a two. E. So we're more attuned to all the little beats of the measure. And so I think what Julian's contemporary choreography brings to that is that kind of astuteness, which I think a lot of detail gets lost when other people approach Baroque music in a contemporary way. So it's the choreographies are very lively. They're
They're very witty.
very witty. Yeah, Julian uses a lot of counterpoint in his. I'm tackling different things with the choreographies because the 17 I think the last big collection of dance notations that we have, because there was a dance notation that was used, was the last big batch of theatrical dances was about 1725. So between 1725 and then like throughout the end of the century, a lot of dance historians are doing a lot of research. What did ballet look like? And why did they stop using notation? So none of Rameau's operas were notated in dance notation. So we don't know what the dancers did. But there's a lot of beautiful paintings and iconography. We can see the way they hold their hand or this asymmetrical use of the body, the lifted elbow versus the soft elbow. And so I am trying to, in the Baroque suite, I'm thinking ahead to the end of the 18th century when there's a lot of petit allegro that we use in ballet today, and a slightly different use of the arm. So I'm using like a lifted elbow. And so we're trying to think about I think I feel this in Dardanus. Sometimes, especially in the Chaconne, there's so much space and how we want to express using space. And is it like a rotational turn or something that's a gathering gesture versus those measures that feel more dense and filigreed. And then we get into a more like condensed petit allegro mode where there's a lot of little jumps and beats. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
been a really interesting process for Julian and I, and it's so great to finally be with the orchestra and start rehearsing because we've just been in the studio together, Julian and I. So it's just great to expand it now
We just came
outwards.
from rehearsal, our first 2D rehearsal with the students here at Juilliard
It was
in one of the
great.
dance rooms, which was really fun. Yeah, it's interesting because Rameau, a choreographer from the time, actually has this fantastic quote about how Rameau teaches us how to dance, which I
Hmm.
think is so beautiful because it's kind of the most kinetic music before Stravinsky in a way. It really like it impels us all to dance. So,
Right.
and one of the very cool things about his dance music, I think, is not only that we have the standard dance forms, the minuets, the gavottes, the sarabans, and of course the huge chaconnes, but also there are these kind of character pieces that are just like air gai,
Right.
and they're often very irregular in phrasing, and they really invite quirkiness and humor, which I think is fantastic, and I think it really is captured in your.
Yeah, and big character shifts because again, we're taking it out of context. But yeah, when the pleasures fall asleep, even though we're not falling asleep, we're doing something else, languorous within the measures there. But there are these, yeah, sudden shifts of character, and that also makes us wonder as 18th century choreographers working today, what did they do? So this acting on top of the dancing is something that we have to address more when we're choreographing 18th century opera because pure dance was moments of like pure virtuosity where you weren't necessarily expressing emotion of the soul through the motion of the body, like love or hope or astonishment. But how did a satyr really dance or how did a pleasure really dance? And they must have danced differently. So how did that look and how does the character change and resonate through the body? Those are all things we think about when we're choreographing, especially if we're choreographing in the context of an opera. Those character shifts are actually the most pleasurable part of being an 18th century dancer because you get to change modes
Mm.
all the time.
And one form that particularly invites that, I think, is the big. Every opera tends to end with a huge chaconne,
Yeah.
because most dance forms are binary. There's a section that repeats and then a B section that repeats. So you very balanced, very symmetrical. But then at the end of every opera, there's the chaconne, which is more or less a repeated 8-bar pattern Rameau does really clever things with how he inflects that, but it means that it's a much more extended form, which is very cool. And it often serves in an opera as the moment when order is restored and things are brought together, happy ending. And it's a great sort of triumphant finish to the opera. And it has many different episodes, which I think is
Yeah,
very, very
they are
cool.
episodic.
Yeah.
That's it's, and I think even more in Nais than Dardanus.
Mhm.
It's and Julian was thinking about that. It's so it changes mode so quickly, so often, and you're never in one character for too long. And even if we're not playing in our contemporary selves a character on stage, the character of our dancing changes. So I like to use the four temperaments, right? To go back to
Nice.
those, that proto-psychological theory that we're all a little bit of fire, a little bit of air, a little bit of earth, air, water, right? And so changing character can also just mean changing weight and affect. So going from something that's light in staccato to something that's light in legato, or going for something that's heavy in staccato to something that's heavy in legato, like water. So even if we're not actually changing from a satyr to a nymph, we're still changing weight and affect all the time, and that's how you can bring the character of the music alive in an abstract way.
That's so interesting because that really applies to us as well as musicians because half the program is going to be just us orchestra enacting these dances musically. And a lot of that has exactly to do with that, with just figuring out is this how to create the heaviness of this dance, where we are in the beat. Are we sort of on the front of the beat? Are we on the back side of the beat? Are we very beautifully in the middle of the beat? Or is it earthy? Is it airy? All these things are really something that we think about. And as in our physicality as well, like, how do you choreograph your bow speed to do
Mm.
this? What are you thinking about in terms of creating the steps that the dancers are doing with our bows? So it's a huge education for our students, our Juilliard students here, because I think for all of us, French Baroque music is always something that a lot of people come to the last of the various languages of the Baroque. Everyone knows Vivaldi and Handel, but this other national language that was so cultivated in France, starting with Jean-Baptiste Lully when he kind of invents the whole classic French style, ironically, an Italian who does it, which is really interesting. But that becomes such a cultivated art and a very super, super sophisticated art. I think there's a lot of parallel between the ornaments that the music has, these very tender trills or turns that you really have to love and you have to care about. Wanda Landowska, the harpsichordist, once said that an ornament badly played is like a smile missing a tooth, which I think is
Well,
fabulous.
they had a lot of that in the 18th century.
So,
Hence the lack of
yeah,
smiling.
totally, exactly. That's why they didn't follow it. But it's something that's really interesting just to have to spend the care and attention to really love these phrases as much
Yeah.
as we can to bring them to life. So that's been a wonderful adventure for my students to discover this language that just speaks so eloquently once you figure out how to bring it to life. And I think that's what we're all doing
And
here.
there's not just one way
Exactly.
either. So I was
So
thinking about when you were talking about the care of shaping a phrase and how dancers are doing the same thing. Do I want to attack the downbeat? I could attack and keep moving, or I could attack and really be staccato and hold it. How do I want to shape the step? What does that look like? It looks like maybe a softer undercurve, or making a larger rounded gesture. How do I want to shape my gesture? Do I want to shape it this way? Do I want to snap it up? So all that little nuance, it comes into play when, I think we kind of like we sort of we don't spit out the choreography, but we have to get the steps out there.
yeah.
And then the fun part is, how do we want to shape them? And how do we want to be with the orchestra or sometimes against? And then performing with live music, of course, and because we've been using recorded music. Uh, and so now there's all these new nuances to hear when the orchestra is playing, and that means we also dancers, we have to kind of get rid of any extra tension and really open our ears and our heart spaces to be really good listeners, so we can be with you.
Yeah, and it's totally both ways. I mean, Carolyn and I have done a lot of projects over the years at operas, at the Boston Music Festival, And leading the orchestra there, I'm always reading the stage and trying to empathize with the dancers and understand what they need and how they need it when. So that's part of it. For like today, I was just playing some of the dances by myself so that the orchestra could actually watch what you guys are doing so that they start to sense
Mm,
what you need and how you need it, which is really part of the dialogue as well. So that's it's a fantastic conversation to be having on stage. It really is.
yeah.
It's live and it's electric and it's really very present. One of the other cool things about this program, I think, is not only that we're doing these fabulous dance suites from these operas, but also that I figured it was a great chance to highlight the other side of Rameau's orchestra music, which are his amazing overtures, because every opera starts with the classic way to start a French opera is to have what Jean-Baptiste Lully kind of enshrined, which was a slow dotted opening followed by a fast, brisk kind of fugal section. Um, and Rameau really blows that up. He's this really interesting character. He spends his first 50 years of his life as kind of a provincial organist in places like Dijon or Avignon or Clermont-Ferrand, which were pretty much the sticks in 17th century France. I mean, Dijon was something, but um, and then he decides in 1722 that he wants to move to Paris. He wants to publish his big book on harmony, and he also really wants to get into opera. And it takes him 10 years in Paris, but in 1733 he finally does his first opera, and he's 50 years old, which I find it incredible that this amazing composer. He sort of starts his professional, like his real career starts with Hippolyte in 1733 and continues right up until he dies. I mean, he's writing operas till the end. And there's basically almost at least one opera per year that he creates. And these are huge, huge, huge projects. But gradually over time, you really see the transformation in the overtures, which start as fairly classic Lullian overtures, but then very soon he gets interested in having programmatic elements in them. And then he starts to be interested in how to reflect the drama as
Mm.
well. So um, we'll start with a overture from this opera called Zoroastre that has a very specific program. It's like the first part is the groaning of the people oppressed by this tyrant, and then Zoroastre comes and liberates them all, and then they have this rejoicing. So you have a plan, but the effects that Rameau has are incredibly striking and incredibly dramatic. There's also one that starts with a depiction of chaos, and his version of chaos is really kind of violent at the opening. So violent that actually the first section that we'll play actually was canceled after a couple of rehearsals because the orchestra just couldn't deal with it. So we're doing sort of the original, the radical version, which is very
Is
cool.
it too dissonant? And
It's too
why
dissonant. I think they
too
just could
dissonant for
not,
the 18th
they could
century?
not handle it. So that's pretty cool. And dissonant and fragmented at the same time. It's
Mm.
really, really interesting. And we have one other that is really connected to the dance suite of Nais. The overture of Nais is all about this battle between the Titans and the gods. So you hear at the beginning the sort of scurrying sounds, the Titans trying to creep up to heaven, and then there's this huge battle with timpani and trumpets blazing and uh, syncopations from all across the orchestra, and just a spectacular, spectacular thing.
Mm.
So there's a lot of sheer theatricality that we get to explore with this program.
Is that typical for overtures that there's that
Very,
much programmatic drama to them?
very rare. Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
Rameau's really special. And what's so interesting is that he dominates the Parisian opera stage right up till the Revolution, and then after that, no one really follows his lead. It's really interesting. They do something much simpler, much more
Hmm.
Italianate. They want pretty little tunes
Love.
instead. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that ballet
That
music,
ballet
that
is
pretty little ballet music. It's all about love,
exactly. So
simple
this is
emotions.
right, right, very straightforward emotions. So this is a fantastic moment for us both to explore some really interesting and complicated emotions, which I think is very cool and
Yeah,
very rare.
it
Yeah.
is. And beautiful.
And
Rainbow's
beautiful.
music is so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that I think you'll go out humming the tunes of.
Yeah.
It's something that every single moment is just so memorable, not only with the tunes, but with the orchestrations, immensely clever and surprising effects he makes. So I think it should be just a huge kind of party, both
Yeah.
musically and
And it's full of like confection. I
yeah,
was thinking about the difference between like the Louis XIV
yeah,
time period and then, the period in between and then Louis the 15th and how there's like it's kind of like the sky's open in terms of possibilities.
totally.
Like
Yeah,
ding dong, the witch is
yeah,
dead. And
absolutely.
everybody's, there's all these like Watteau paintings and pastoral colors and people frolicking in the countryside and
Yeah,
picnic baskets
yeah. The
and
doors have been opened.
pastel colors. And there's just something about it that feels so like vibrant and lively.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a wonderful world for us to get to explore, and I think it'll be a wonderful world for you all to discover as
Yeah.
we do this project. So we're amazingly grateful to be able to do this. It's such a rare opportunity to get to
Yes.
combine the
Thank you.
students of Juilliard and the amazing professionals of Tafelmusik and to bring these amazing dancers along.
Yes, I know.
So,
Thank you so much. We're so excited.
yeah. So come and say hi afterwards, please.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.